Well, maybe the woke media's darling isn't so darling. How's everybody doing? My name is Anthony Brian Logan, and today we got to talk about the U.S. women's soccer team maybe not being as woke as you may think. Now, if you don't understand what's going on or you need a quick refresher, I'll back up a little bit here to explain to you what's going on. Now, you may have seen the women's soccer team before the Olympics, during the Olympics, kneeling on the field, fists up in the air, hands up, don't shoot, I can't breathe, Black Lives Matter, all this, that, and the third, right? You may think that the entire team or the majority of them are super woke and down with the far leftist principles and ideas. But that might not be true. Maybe a lot of these women don't want to do the kneeling. Maybe they don't want to do the fists up in the air, but they're being bullied by a certain someone by the name of Rapinoe. And you've seen this person before. The weird colored hair, always in the front, puffing the chest out, about 5 foot tall, 100 pounds even. You understand what I'm saying? Bigger than life, but not really. That person may be kind of the driving force behind all this. Maybe she is kind of ordering players in her own kind of way to do the kneeling, to do the fists up in the air. Now, is it just me making that assertion? No. One of our own teammates by the name of Hope Solo went on the podcast and said so. Now, if you want to hear the full podcast, I'll link to it in the box. But now we're going to play a clip from that podcast. After we get done listening to that, I'll come back. I'll talk about what she said there. Then I'll give you my 2 cents, my deep detail analysis, and then I'll wrap it on up with a nice bow on top. So without further ado, let's go ahead and roll it.
Response that you've seen to this team's activism in the last few years and how that has maybe evolved over time since you were playing and maybe even since before you were playing. You know, this team has always been outspoken. They've always been unafraid to stand up for issues that they've believed in. But does it seem to you like the opposition to them and what they stand for has been growing louder in recent years?
Yeah, I think the rhetoric surrounding this team has been both divisive and inclusive. I guess it's kind of where we are in politics in this day and age. You know, the most important thing for this team is that they stand up for what's federal law here in the United States. Federal law in the United States stands for the Equal Pay Act since 1962, during John F. Kennedy days, and we still don't have equal pay here in the United States. So for me, that's something that shouldn't be divisive. You know, we're fighting for something that's been policy for over 60 years. And I think that's a very positive thing. You know, I think right now what I've seen is there's been so much debate about the kneeling and the not kneeling. I know most people stand against discrimination. I know most people that I speak to, and I live in the South. I live in a very conservative area here in North Carolina in the South. Obviously, I have friends on both sides of the aisle. But I think the kneeling thing can be very divisive. I do appreciate the fact that there's no national anthem right before the game to really remove that decision from athletes, because that's very tough. It's tough. I've seen Megan Rapinoe almost bully players into kneeling because she really wants to stand up for something in her particular way. But it's our right as Americans to do it you know, in whatever way we're comfortable with. And I think that's really hard being on the main stage right now with so many political issues for athletes. There's a lot of pressure. And ultimately, at the end of the day, our number one focus should and has always been to win first. And unfortunately, a lot of those, you know, we're carrying the world on our back these days. A lot of the athletes are. You look at what LeBron James is doing, and he feels like he's carrying the world on his back for youth here in the United States. So there's a lot of outside pressures. But at the end of the day, you know, I think we have to remember that we're standing for what's federal law here in the United States.
All right. So you saw that. Well, you didn't see it, but you heard it. Now, this is really interesting, but not surprising at all. First things first, I got to tell you a little bit about Hope Solo. There's some political stuff going on between Hope Solo and Megan Rapinoe because Hope Solo wants to get the equivalent pay to the men. And there was this whole big legal thing surrounding it, because you may have heard talk about the law. That's the whole equal pay argument. And I think prior to this particular podcast, maybe even during the podcast at a certain point, she was talking about how Megan Rapinoe got in the way of the negotiation process to get equal pay to the men. So there may be a chip on their shoulder against her because of the whole pay thing. But as far as in kneeling, I believe that to be 100% true. I think the whole thing with the pay allowed her to come out and say that against her because that was going on. And she probably wouldn't have said anything if not for the pay thing, if that makes any sense. Basically, she has no loyalty to Megan because there's been too many violations. So she pretty much let it all out. Like, yeah, she got in the way of the equal pay and she was bullying us to do the kneeling. I believe that 100%. And it's like that throughout professional sports, in my opinion. Because let's say you're on a big-time football team, basketball team, and your star player does the kneeling and a bunch of other guys on the team do the kneeling. You don't want to be the odd guy out. It's only, 15 spots on an NBA team, 400 guys in the league at any one point in time. You don't want to be the 401st guy. You don't want to get cut. You might be on a 10-day contract. You might kind of be on check your ground. You might be getting a little bit older. You're like 35 and you got child support. You don't want to be the only guy not kneeling and mess around and lose your job. Because although your big players like Megan Rapinoe or other guys and girls on their respective teams may not be the GM, they may not be in charge of hiring and firing people. They are in charge of hiring and firing people to a certain point. Because let's say, for example, LeBron James. I know it's kind of an extreme example, but I'll make my point pretty clear. Let's say LeBron James hates you. Okay, you're trying to get on the team. You're trying to get on the Lakers, right? And LeBron James hates you. Are you going to be on the Lakers? You see, if you're like a top 10 talent ever, his hatred for you may not be enough to override the general manager. But if you're just a random guy, a swing man coming on the team, just trying to make it, just trying to fill a roster spot, and LeBron hates you, you're not going to get on the team. Megan Rapinoe, same thing. If she hates you, you're not going to be on the team. You're not going to go to the Olympics. You're not going to have the opportunity to be able to work. So really, it's kind of like workplace harassment. And is that right? Aren't there certain little regulations or rules against that? I don't know. You guys know better than I do, so let me know in the comments below. But this is of no surprise. Not at all. People talking about the workplace and, oh, they're racist, they're discriminatory. Maybe is that you don't play golf with the guys and you don't interact well socially. Maybe it's things like that. Maybe you are a Trump supporter and a crowd of Biden supporters and you're the odd guy out. Okay, one of your coworkers saw your Facebook post about how you wanted Trump to win in 2020, and now that's gotten around the whole office, and you're pretty much persona non grata. It's to the point where certain employers will fire you or will discriminate against you just for being a Trump supporter. I think I saw the drummer from that group. I forget the name of the group. The Offspring, Pretty Fly for a White Guy. Remember that song back in the 90s? Well, they're still around. They're still touring, I suppose. And the drummer for the Offspring got kicked out of the group because he didn't want to go get the shot. And he had a legitimate reason. Like, even if you're one of these believe the science guys, he had a legitimate reason. He was like, look, I've already had the virus, number one. And number two, I have Guillain-Barré syndrome. And my doctor said, don't get it because it could complicate is this a condition? You've had Guillain-Barré since you've been a little boy. Doctor says, don't get it because it can mess that up. And the band still said, nope, you're dangerous to be around. You're anti-vax. We don't want you here. Get out of the group. That's what's going on with a lot of these things. And I understand why a lot of guys and girls can't speak out. They got kids to feed. They got husbands, wives, or whatever to depend upon them. They're caretakers and they can't lose their income. So people like myself and many others got to be the voice. They got to be the voice for those that can't stand up and say something lest they lose their livelihood. I get it, 100%. And these bullies in the workplace, these bullies on social groups and school and whatnot, it's just like school as I close. It's just like school, but the stakes are higher. Rather than it just being like you're not going to be in this particular friend group or you might got to fight somebody, it's now you can't get a job. Now you can't provide for your family, provide for your kids and your wife and everybody else. That's a serious problem. Would there be any federalists looking at this and saying, hey, workplace discrimination, workplace harassment. Hey, who knows? But as I close, I want to say this. I think there are more people out there that believe in a lot of conservative ideas. They love America. They don't believe in the hands up, don't shoot, Black Lives Matter, I can't breathe. They don't believe in that, but there's Megan Rapinoe at their job. There's a LeBron James, hypothetically, at their job that is preventing them from coming out and saying certain things because they got to be able to make money in the meantime. They got to be able to eat, and that person is holding them socially accountable for things that they do as a method to be able to get paid. It's really unfortunate, but I think I'll leave that right there for now. And what say you? How do you feel about what Hope Solo said about Megan Rapinoe? Do you believe it? Do you not believe it? Whatever your thoughts on that are, let me know in the comments below. You guys pretty much know where I'm at. There's a lot of guys and girls out there that feel the way that Hope Solo does, as far as, you know, people at the workplace bullying you into publicly thinking and believing one thing and wearing the LGBTQ elemental P stickers and the BLM stickers and crap like that. And then sometimes it gets cemented rather than just a bully and its policies. You go to Target and they got every kind of different sexuality flag, random colors, kind of like thrown together like watercolor, like you just splashing paint on a canvas. You got these flags everywhere. And if you want to say, hey, some of these flags are offensive to me, take them down, and the people that are in charge say that you're a bigot for doing that, who's going to win? But whatever your thoughts are, please let me know in the comments below. And that's all I got to say for this video. If you like what you heard, please comment, rate, share, and subscribe. Peace.